Welcome to the video on 6.4 in the Redwoods Pre-Algebra textbook. We're talking about unit conversions, and now we're focused on metric, the metric system. Before I go into more detail, I want to encourage you to look at your Tools for Mastery Mathematics book. Part of why you have this book is as a guide, as a reference guide to different elements of things that you're learning. And so in the Tools for Mastery Mathematics book, if you go to page 22, you notice that we give you a guide for like the powers of 10, the names that we have for each of these. We know that 10 to the third power is called 1,000, for example. And then you have 10,000, 100,000, million, 10 million, 100 million, billion, and so on and so forth. But it's important that when you're dealing with metric, you will be seeing things like this, where you have 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters, for example, and it's just a good review. So powers of 10, I encourage you to check it out in your book. So the next thing we're going to look at is an example from 6.4. So in 6.4, they've introduced you to the metric system. They're talking about, a deca, hecto, kilo, deci, centi, and milli. This is all on page 479. And so they introduce that, and then they talk about length. They talk about the powers of 10, as I told you. They did talk about that too. And then they start off with examples. Like the one I'm doing here is a sample here. The principle you use from 6.3 and 6.2, those principles are the same principles you're going to use over here. And so when they say convert 1156 meters to kilometers, we write the relationship, right? 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So it's 1 to 1,000, right? 1 kilometer to 1,000 meters. This can also be written as a division situation of 1 kilometer to 1,000 meters. Do you see? And so in this case, you have to decide where you want to put the kilometer, either in the numerator or denominator. The first step to converting that I'll recommend as a quick reminder is to write down what is the thing that they are asking you to convert out of, right? So it's 1156 meters. So that's the first, notice that's the first thing I have here. Now the next set of parentheses will deal with getting rid of that meter, right? Because I want to have kilometers, right? So I could get rid of the meter. So 1 kilometer over 1,000 meters, right? So that's what we have here. Now we can simplify, right? If you just look at this, because there's 3 zeros, that means that the decimal is going 1, 2, 3. So 1.156 kilometers. Okay, so 1.156 kilometers is what you would get when you convert 1156 meters to kilometers. Very good. So that is one example with the metric system. If you move on in your book, they give you another, they show you the situation of when you're going from a meter to kilometers, what happens? Where is that decimal going? And then the next example was change 276 centimeters to meters. So let's look at that one. So we have 276 centimeters to meters. We start off with, with that which was given, 276 centimeters. And then we write the relationship that will get rid of the centimeters. 100 centimeters to 1 meter, right? 100 centimeters to 1 meter. The centimeters will cancel. And the decimal point basically is moving twice to the left because there are 2 zeros in the denominator, and you now have 2.76 meters. Very good. You start out with what you're given, right? 276 centimeters. That has its parentheses, or that has its platform. You don't have to put it in a parentheses. It's just by itself. Then you go on to the next parentheses and say, what can I put in this parentheses that will get rid of the centimeters and allow me to focus on getting to the meter, right? That's what happens with that. So these are examples with distance, right? Your book goes on to give you examples with mass, but the same principle will be at work. You always want to establish what is the relationship. Now, sometimes you might have to take multiple steps to get to the appropriate relationship. So let's look at an example where we have multiple steps that have to be taken. So now we're looking at an example where multiple steps might have to be taken. 0.05 deca grams, okay? We want to convert that to milligrams. That's what the goal is at the end of the day. But you might not have a direct route from decagrams to milligrams. So what you do is you change the decagrams to grams and then change the grams to milligrams. Do you see? So one step at a time though. So first let's get rid of the decagrams, right? We convert that to grams, and we can write that we can write that in a different way. We can write it like this. So we know that this will cancel that. What's the relationship between the decagrams and the grams? 1 decagram is 10 grams. Now notice the word deca, right? Decade. You begin to see how we get some of these words used in math. Your book gives you a list of these abbreviations and so on. Now we can take grams and milligrams, right? So 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. So 0.05, and then we have, right? Because there's 1, 1, 2, 3. So those 4 zeros. So because they're multiplying, you move that decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So if you move 1, 2, 3, 4, now you have 500 milligrams. So basically, 0.05 decagrams is 500 milligrams. I hope that makes sense there. Then we have volume. And you can feel free to pause the video, go back and look at how I set it up. Feel free to email if you have any questions. With volumes, the same principles apply. Remember, when you're dealing with kilo, a kiloliter is 1,000 liters. A hectoliter is 100 liters. 1 decaliter is 10 liters. 1 liter, of course, is a liter, and so on page 484. So it's the same principle here. You might have to do multiple steps. So let's look at 5,763 milliliters. And we're trying to change that to decaliters. What we can do is we can change the milliliters to liters first, and then change the liters to decaliters. So this will get rid of the milliliters portion, and now we're going to take the liter decaliter relationship and put it over here. So the liters will cancel, the milliliters will cancel, and the rest of this is fraction multiplication and simplification. So 3 zeros and a 0 there, so that's 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. 0.5763 decaliter. So that's how we get our answer for that one. 0.5763 decaliters. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next section.